Now think about this. When Jesus was murdered by crucifixion on the cross, do you think that he died at exactly the right time in his life? Did he die under the providential care of God on that cross? Of course he did. Dr. Lutzer explains.
One day I did a study in the New Testament of the little phrase, "His hour had not yet come." You know, you read the text and it says, "And they sought to take him, but his hour had not yet come." The hour that is being spoken of is the hour of his death, the hour of Gethsemane, and the hour of the cross. And there was no way in the world that they could take Jesus until God's hour struck. Christian man said one time as he was dealing with his enemies, and they were after him to kill him, he said that there is no combination of men and demons that can take somebody's life if God thinks that man still has some work to do. Well, I like that, because everything is in God's hands. How accurate was God's planning of the death of Christ? Well, in the book of John, you know, it tells us that when Jesus Christ died, it was at the very hour when the Passover lambs were being slain. God wanted Jesus to represent the Passover, and so Jesus dies on the Passover at the very time that the lambs were slaughtered. Can it be any more specific than that? And you see, God is the one who arranged that. Now you say, well, human beings did it. Yes, I know human beings did it. But even there the hand of God was seen. They did it at the time that was appointed. So he died, you see, at the right time. You say, well, what about the death of a child? And we talked about that in a previous broadcast, but I can't help but think of the words of Jim Elliot, who said one time, and he, of course, was martyred, as you know, as a young man, as a missionary. He said, God is peopling heaven. Why should he limit himself to old people? Yes, God is peopling heaven, and the believer dies at the right time. Now, of course, it's possible for us to hasten our death by doing silly things. I understand that. But at the same time, let us bear in mind that if we walk in the Spirit, we are being led of God. And our death will happen as God wills it to. Let me say also that Jesus Christ died in the right way. Could he have been stoned to death? No. Because God predicted that he would hang on a tree. It says that in the book of Deuteronomy. Cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. He had to be crucified. You know, John, maybe this is as good a place as any to comfort ourselves in the fact that believers just don't die willy-nilly. You know, recently a woman came to me because of the book that I've written entitled 1 Minute After You Die, and she said, Pastor, you delivered me from something. She said, my husband was murdered. And she said, when I read that Jesus Christ was murdered and that he died within God's providential care, she said, it helped me to accept the fact that my husband was murdered within the scope of God's loving care and providence. And I said, lady, you're right. You're right. Nothing can separate us from the love of God, and even a Christian who dies because he is murdered can accept that as God's providential will.